Okay.
Welcome to the More to Life podcast. I am your host, Elle Mace, and today I am joined by the wonderful Nuna. Hi, Nuna.
Hi, Al. How are you?
We're good. We just had a few technical difficulties, didn't we? But we are all here now. So I'm absolutely buzzing to have you on. We're going to focus today really about your story, your journey. You're a registered nutritionist. You've also had your own history with disordered eating. So I'm really excited for the listeners to sort of really get, a vulnerable and raw share from you. So just to start, just tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and yeah, what do people need to know?
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. I'm honestly so excited. So, I am as you said, a registered nutritionist, but I'm actually practicing as a food freedom and empowerment coach. And it's a funny story because I started my nutrition degree because of my disordered eating and my obsession with losing weight and how I could, accelerate that progress and process and make it work. And I've actually ended up going the complete other way. And now I help people find food freedom rather than focus on the nitty-gritty nutrition.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's amazing. That actually shows you there that the more you actually find out, the more you start to realize that everything you thought you knew was wrong.
yeah.
Like to a certain extent, you actually thought that learning more about food would kind of like improve your what you didn't know at the time was sort of eating. But actually, what it made you realize is with all this like actual knowledge, like um proved knowledge, that actually wow, it's so complex and there's so much more to food and being healthy.
Yeah, I think you know what? It's taught me two things. It's taught me that when you have disordered eating, it takes over your life to a point where I actually chose my whole degree based on that topic because I was so consumed by it. And then it also taught me that there is so much more to life than nutrition. It's about, feeding yourself and nourishing yourself is about mental health as well as physical health. And what I found was that there was a reason why I was binge eating, and there was a reason why I was yo-yoing in weight and getting heavier every time. And it was because I was too focused on what I was eating.
Yeah, like it takes over your life, doesn't it? It becomes like a entire obsession. I can totally see how your narrative would have been to go and do that degree to sort of help you. I remember when I was younger, very similar to you, just sort of like thinking this was my number one priority in life, and I just need to put everything else aside to sort of maintain or get to a certain size. It's just
Yeah,
bonkers.
100%. You know what? I remember like from the moment I woke up every morning, that was my mission. My mission was to lose weight, to be more attractive. And I remember even having like notebooks full of calculations of how many calories I could eat that day or how many calories I needed to be, how many calories I need to cut out that week so that I could hit my goals. And it's kind of sad looking at it because all my energy, all my motivation was based on something just so for me now when I look back on it, it's not actual meaning in life, it's just appearance. And I think
Mm,
that just mirrors what's going on in this world. There's such a focus on how we look. And
mm.
actually, there's so much more to life than what we look like, right?
Oh my God. So hence the title of my podcast. Well done. More to life.
Oh my
It's
God.
it's so true though. Like that's literally where I got to after the 17 years. I was like, there has got to be something more out there for me than this. Like same with you. I would wake up in the morning. My first thought was, what do I weigh today? What do I look like today? How do I feel today? And
Mm,
last thought at night, and like you, writing everything down in for me, it was on my notes on my iPhone. And I mean, I can actually see back because your iPhone saves everything. I can see back to like 2012 and 2015 with the notes that I was taking and what I was eating that day. And I just think that is, I just didn't, I also don't think I realized how sick I was
yeah.
at the time. Now I look back, I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like I was speaking to my friend about this earlier, and it was such a norm at some point. back
Mm.
in the day, because I used to look up at the older girls at my school and they'd be talking about all the diets they tried, and my mum was doing it as well. So it felt, I guess it was so inevitable for it to happen because I was swimming in this world of diets and weight loss and all that stuff. And I remember, I think one of the kind of turning points when I started thinking, okay, maybe there's a different way to live, is when I used to look into the future and think, okay, is this me forever now? Am I just going to be constantly battling with the foods that I love and watching other people eat and me feeling shit about myself? So I think
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons why I decided to do something about it, because I thought, surely this can't be it forever.
Mm. Yeah, and sadly, that is what it is for a lot of people, isn't it? Like I was the same as you. I was thinking how I eat in that present day when I was thinking this. I'm gonna have to be like this when I'm like 90. That's if I even got to 90, because like, of all the poor decisions with my body. But I actually envisaged like me as a granny with like a protein shake. And I was like, I can't.
I
I
know.
can't be drinking protein shakes and things like that at the age of 90 at like my grandkids' parties or whatever. Like something has got to change.
Yeah. And I even look back on things that me and my friends used to do to not eat, like smoking cigarettes and
Mm,
anything that would curb my appetite. I'd do it because that's all I cared about. And now that I'm like trained in how to, deal with people with these like binge eating and restriction and that mentality, I've realized that we're not actually health focused when we're trying to lose weight. We're appearance focused, and there's a huge difference. And the thing is that you think you're being healthy because
yeah.
it's a weight loss thing, but actually, cutting out carbs, cutting out fat, using ways to curb appetite like smoking or whatever it is, these are all really unhealthy habits, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're just not thinking about that when your aim is weight loss. So I think
Mm,
it's about realizing that there's more to life as well in terms of like looking after yourself and health. Do you
yeah.
agree?
Oh, 1000%. Because also, you don't really realize at the time, but actually, whatever you're striving for, you won't be happy when you get there.
Yeah.
Like, I remember wanting this weight goal, and I got there eventually, and like in a huge amount of pain. But I remember the day so well. I got in the scales and I just felt nothing inside. I was like, oh, I'm just going to extend it now and go for the next goal. And I literally felt nothing. I was numb. I was just like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
whatever you're happy with. And I have a lot of clients and lots of friends as well, and they have plastic surgery and stuff, thinking, I just want this will make me happy, I know it will. Same with weight loss. Like when it comes to it, it doesn't. There's still that thing inside you that you're not happy with yourself.
Yeah. 100%. And this all came to light for me when I actually found food freedom, and then I started doing some self-development work because of like relationship stuff. And I actually started seeing a therapist, and it looked like, well, it all transpired that my relationship problems were coming from like insecurities and actually like childhood traumas that I had experienced. And then everything came together, and I realized that even my like body image problems, my food problems, they all came from this one kind of like hole inside me that never felt good enough. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it manifests in so many ways, but that's why we find, and I've started working specifically now with high achieving women, because high achievers tend to be the way that they are because of like some kind of insecurity that they're not good enough, and they tend to have eating problems as well. So it's like there's such a connection between like self-worth and self-esteem and striving for like a better version of you and
Yes.
your relationship with food. It's crazy,
Yes.
isn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah, like I don't even think I've ever had a client who has been in disordered eating or body dysmorphia and genuinely had high self-worth, or even just good self-worth. Like,
Yeah.
even if some things were portrayed to be super successful, like you say, the career, the job, like whatever it is, usually that is being masked by,
Yeah.
you know, the unhappiness underneath, and that's why they can put all their energy into the job, because it gives them that instant sort of satisfaction and self-esteem. But yeah, absolutely. And I think this as well, certainly for men. So I think, you know, a lot of our work will be with women, but when I also speak with men who are, you know, potentially overweight and they want to lose weight for health reasons, and I explain to them, we're going to have to do the emotional work here. Like, we can't just put you on a food plan, and like, you're going to have to do the emotional piece. And I think, you know, it's a little bit difficult, it's a little bit harder for some, but it does need to be done. This is all such emotional work.
Yeah, and I think also what I've realized is, for you to genuinely believe you deserve like love and care for yourself, you have to feel worthy of it. Do you know what I mean? So like feeding yourself, nourishing yourself, giving your body everything that it needs to function optimally, that comes from a place of believing you're, you know, you're worthy of it, and you're, you know, you're in a place where you just, it's like I always say to clients, right? Imagine you're your favorite pet. How would you treat your favorite pet? Like, you wouldn't restrict it from the food that it needs. You'd want it to be happy, you'd want it to be healthy, you'd want to take it out for walks, like you'd make it give it all the cuddles it deserves. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we need to treat ourselves like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, that's the same with like your best friends, your parents, your siblings, your kids. Like, we need to treat ourselves with the same respect that we often do other people, and the same
Yeah.
love. And I think also that is where a lot of us we've lacked that at some point in our life, like whether it's just a breakdown in a relationship, a friendship, or, you know, whatever it is. And that's that kind of that wound, isn't it, that is there. And I'm not worthy enough because of our experiences when we were younger.
100%. And that's been part of my journey, is like understanding where it's all come from. And I have to say, it is my parents have a big part to play in it. And there's been times where I've been like annoyed at them for it. But what I've realized actually is I'm grateful for exactly the way my life panned out because of the lessons I've learned. But I know why I am the way I am now. And my relationship with my dad was very like hot and cold, and he was always expecting more of me, and he was never happy with what I was achieving. And I think that was quite a big part of like my low self-worth. And then on the other hand, I had my mum, who was like always trash talking herself in the mirror
Mm.
and complaining about how much chocolate she'd eaten, and saying how she was gonna, you know, starve herself tomorrow to make up for it, or go on a run. And like, so I think as kids, we're such sponges to what we're exposed to, and we don't really realize it until later on, and we do that reflective work. And I think that's why what we do as coaches is so important, because it gives you that place to, that space to look back and identify, okay, yes, maybe I was exposed to all of this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it was right or it was true. But as a
Yeah.
kid, you just take in everything you hear, and you think it's Bible, don't you?
Oh, absolutely, you do. You think, well, if especially if a parent is saying something, like a grandparent, like you do, you have full trust that that must be right.
Yeah.
And even as an adult, if like someone who's older than you is saying something to you, you're like, well, that must be right because they're older. Like, you know, if we're you know, if we're like sort of under 10, and a teacher. But of course, like, what we don't know, and we don't end up knowing for ages, is doesn't mean what they say is right and that we should do it or feel the same. But for you, like, you know, it sounds like looking at your mum when she was sort of, like you say, talking really negatively about herself, or she was saying, I need to go for a run, I feel fat, etc. That's you just as a child being like, well, I need to go for a run, I mustn't be fat then because mum won't like me if she doesn't like herself like that.
Yeah, exactly. And even as adults, we still take on so many messages from the media without even realizing that we're absorbing it and it's affecting us negatively. And I think part of food freedom is getting to that empowered place where you can see messages, you can see, like, on the other day on YouTube, there was this advert and this girl was grabbing her stomach and like saying how, you know, you can lose this. And I was thinking, well, that's just giving a message that we shouldn't have like anything
Mm.
other than a flat stomach. And someone who's watching that is going to obviously internalize that. But when you get to a place of like empowerment and food freedom, you see those messages and you think, okay, how true really is that I shouldn't be going around with, I don't know, fat on my arms or fat on my legs? Like, why is it that I'm being given these messages all the time? And how much should I really believe them?
Mm. Yeah, challenging everything. I
Yeah.
think that's it. Like we had it drilled into us through social media and marketing that weight loss equaled health. Like we do because that's how clever the marketing is, and obviously they spend billions in the marketing to make us really believe that being thinner equals healthier. And I always remember this scientist saying, you in life, like you are much healthier living like, you know, slightly above weight than being somebody who yo-yos throughout their life.
Yeah, and I've seen so many stats now. I mean, there's so many interesting ones, but I'll name a couple. So, like, not between 90 and 95% of people who restrict and go on diets gain the weight back and gain more. So that's kind of one part of it. And
Yeah,
then the next part is that I've actually lost my train of thought. Hang on one second.
that's
So
all right.
that was one thing that I read on my emails yesterday. Oh, and then in the diet industry, they were saying how 12, it's gone up to like, it started at 12 billion like 5 years ago, and it's actually going up every year. And that's showing us that people aren't, they're not being successful at losing weight because they keep
No.
having to go back to the diet industry. And that's the reason why the diet industry doesn't want us to heal our relationship with food.
Yeah,
It wants
I
us to keep
know.
going back. So I think it's just being aware of those things, isn't it?
It is, and when you really start to understand it, you think, "Oh my gosh, of course. Why is it one of the richest industries? Because we literally have to go back every 6 months, every year, whatever it is." But yeah, and do you know what? I can tell that is just that it is absolutely true that people actually just get bigger and bigger because
Mm.
I would say 90% of my clients say to me, "Help me. I'm the biggest I've ever been. And I'm eating the least I've ever eaten.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?" And I'm like, "Excellent. Now you can see your metabolism is slowed right down." Like, that is that whole weight journey. And it obviously as well, like for women then going through the menopause and stuff, it can be really hard.
Yeah, and I actually saw this nutritionist who's specializing in menopause. She did a talk, and she was saying how women who have been dieting throughout their lives tend to put on more weight in the menopause than women who don't diet. So it's really
Yes,
having,
yeah, true.
yeah, it's having an effect on your metabolism. And it's funny because not only does it decrease your metabolism, it increases your appetite over time.
Mm.
So obviously the outcome of that is just weight gain because you're not burning as many calories, but you're taking in more, you're ingesting more, and you're binge eating more, and that's just leading you to put on weight. So it's actually crazy what we're doing to our bodies, isn't it?
Oh, it's so crazy. I do often get that thought of like, oh, I wish I could just turn back time and just not have done what I abused my body in the way that I did. But then I then get that secondary thought where I'm like, well, I've learned so much. I'm now doing what I do. Like this all, there's a purpose for it. But absolutely. So we've touched a bit on binge eating. So you, like myself, have experienced binge eating. What was going on for you then? Like how was it like a big part of your day or week, or was it a bit more sporadic?
So it would happen a lot, mainly because I just wasn't feeding myself enough, but also because of emotions. So, for example, it was like the whole classic diet starts Monday kind of mentality where
Yeah.
the weekend would come and I'd be kind of out of my routine. And because I had this forbidden fruit mentality and that Last Supper effect where you're like, oh, well, this is the last time I'm going to eat this because I'm going to be really good tomorrow, that would make me just like lose control. And
Yeah.
it just felt like I was like an animal. Do you know what I mean? Like this very primal instinct of I'm not being fed enough. So when I see food, I'm just gonna, attack it. And I remember at uni, it was so embarrassing. I used to, like, because I didn't buy any foods for myself. I didn't buy any like snacky foods or chocolate or anything like that because I couldn't trust myself. I would steal my housemates' food like when they weren't
Yeah.
in. Yeah, and eat all their
Yeah.
food and then be like, oh my God, either I've got to replace it or I've just got to like own up to it. And if it was already half eaten, I'd just have to own up to it because they would see that I've replaced it. Or do you know what I mean? So it was like,
Yes, yes,
it
yes,
was
of
such a
course.
it was such a shame thing, and I'd get so like so anxious about if I was going to my mum's for the weekend. I'd be just in my head like, right, how am I going to do this without eating the whole house? Like, there's going to be, rice, there's going to be dessert, there's going to be all this, and I'd be just so anxious that I'm just gonna have a blowout and I'm gonna feel shit. And even my mum's got a video of me once. I told her to film me because I was lying on the sofa. I was literally, when you feel the food up to your throat because
Yeah,
you've eaten so much, I could feel it like about to come back out because I was so
yeah.
full. And I said to her, can you just record me telling my future self never to eat this much again? And she
Mm.
did it, and she probably still has the video. But what's funny is that, of course, it happened again because I carried on, I carried on restricting and putting myself through that cycle. So it was the guilt, I think, because if I didn't feel guilty, I wouldn't have restricted again. So I think
Mm.
really breaking that cycle is just stop beating yourself up. I know it's so much easier said than done, and a lot of work
Yeah.
has to go into that. But really, it comes down to just having more self-compassion.
Mm.
And obviously, me and you probably have a lot to say on that because yeah, it's not easy, especially if you've got, low self-esteem and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, what is your experience similar or
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had a variety of all the different kind of disordered eating throughout my life. Like I had super restriction for times. I had real orthorexia, had binge eating disorder. And then in my final sort of like years was the bulimia part. But the binge eating, it was really for me, like I had restricted for so long. And then like an life event happened and I was just almost woke up with binge eating disorder. Like it was just so powerful within me. And like what you're saying there, like you're living with other people and they'll be out and you just be eating their food, like that's kind of just going from like a subconscious place, isn't it? Like you just kind of you there's going to be consequences of that, like for yourself, either telling them or having the stress of like replace it or
yeah.
whatever, but you don't really care because you're not thinking straight. You just are in this like auto mode, aren't you, where you just do
Yeah,
it and
it's
you just
like
eat.
your body's in survival mode. Like you're not allowing it the food that it needs. You're restricting yourself mentally and physically. And that obviously, that's what I always say is like you can't fight against your body. You just have to work with it. And that's what I
Yes.
was doing for so many years is I was fighting against my body. And the reason why was because all my worth came from external validation. And this is where Instagram plays a huge part. Um, a lot like my eating disorders got worse when I was putting myself on Instagram and putting bikini pictures up and wanting those likes. And it just became, it's like I shot myself in the foot, to be honest, because I'd put pictures of myself up um at my thinnest. And then every time I went on holiday, it's like I would have to starve myself to get back to that size because I thought, well, people can't see me at any other size than my last pictures. So it
Yeah.
was just like this constant cycle of, having it was like trying to live up to this person that I wanted everyone to see. Um,
Yeah.
and I was neglecting like my happiness and myself because all my worth was based on my looks, which is the sad
Yeah.
part.
Really sad. And also like you would have also created most of that in your head. Like no one is talking about, you, is her photo next going to be the same size, or that's not going on in anyone else's head, but in your head it's so important. And it is like the be all and end all of what's, you know, of your life at that time, that next photo has to be like so perfect. But of course, reality is, okay, you might get some people who are really looking at that, but reality is other people don't really care
Yeah.
whether you are 5 pounds heavier or not. Like it's really created for you. Obviously there are some people that's not going to be the case.
Yeah. It's a funny one because I think it was just me basing all my worth on the way I look. And I know that when I look in the mirror now, I'm I don't actually know how much I weigh, to be really honest with you, because I just don't weigh myself anymore. But back in the day, I would be so analytical of like the shape of my legs, just so hyper focused on little parts of my body. Whereas now I look in the mirror and there might be times when I might get a negative thought. But the difference is that it used to take over my whole day, or it would take over the way that I ate, or it would take over what I would wear. Whereas now, okay, I might get a negative thought because we all do if we wake up, on the wrong side of the bed or whatever. But I just carry on with my day and I go about it how I would have if I didn't have that negative thought. And I think that's the difference. It's like it's maybe unrealistic to think that you'll never criticize something about your body, but
Yeah.
it's about raising that bar and thinking, okay, I might have negative thoughts, but they're not going to change the way that I act and the way that I feel towards like who I am and myself. So yeah, I have to say it's a huge change when you do change that mindset of like
Mm.
basically what me and you have achieved. And we can look back and see the huge difference it's made. And I think what we were talking about earlier about, spending your whole life doing that and looking back and thinking, oh, I wish I had never gone through all those diets and all that negative self-talk. What I am grateful for is that I tackled it as soon as possible, because I do look at people who, you know, even my grandma, she's still really she's in that mindset, and it makes me sad because she's lived her whole life, being negative towards her body and trying to control her eating and then binge eating. And I count myself really lucky that in my 20s, I decided to do something about it and I didn't let it carry on.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and it can do, can't it? Like it can literally go up. For some people, it will go on all the way to the end, but and for majority of people, they are here kind of 60, 70, like, oh, just want to do something about it. And yeah, I think like if you're listening thinking, oh gosh, but it just feels so hard, like you've just got to get sorted, you just got to get started, sorry, you just got to get started somewhere, because yeah, the journey isn't easy, it's not going to happen over the period of a week or two. Like it does take a whole 360 approach, from the food to the emotions to everything. But if you don't start it now, like you will find you'll still be sat here in 5 years and 10 years, um like I was. The amount of times I said to myself, firstly, I'm never binging again. I'm never doing that ever again. I used to promise myself every time. But I'd also agree with myself, I'm going to get actually healthy. I'm going to start eating properly. And again, I didn't do that for ages. And then before you know it, the years fly by.
Yeah, literally. And I think it might sound scary and it might feel like you're so far away from where you want to be, but it's the most worth it journey you can go on. And I promise you, because from my place, and it sounds like Elle, maybe your eating disorders were probably more severe than mine. But even at my stage, I know how much it affected every waking minute of my life. And it affected
Mm.
my relationships. It affected like everything that I wanted to do was based around that. And since finding food freedom and healing my relationship with food, I've been able to work on other parts of myself, like my my relationships. I've been able to actually focus on what really matters to me, and that's like my business and traveling and like my friends and actually enjoying my time with my friends. Because when I look back, a lot of the time I spent with my friends, I was either worrying about how I was gonna not eat too much when I was sat chatting to them, or I was just thinking about how ugly I look or how fat I look or how thin they look. I wasn't enjoying every minute of my life, you know, it was like constant anxiety. And I think even though it might feel really daunting to go on that journey, it can happen quicker than you think.
Yes. Yeah.
I really do believe that. I think, especially with my journey, I thought it was because I was in that mindset for like 10 years. I thought it would take me years to get out of that. And it really didn't take as long as I thought. And every milestone, every win is like such a big relief.
Yeah.
It's not like you have to wait till you're 100% intuitive eater to feel the benefits.
Yeah. Absolutely not. No.
Like it
Yeah.
gets better every, you know, every step of the way, your life gets that much better every time. So,
Yeah,
I-
1000%. Like I set out to heal my relationship with food and my body, but what I ended up doing is getting much better friendships, much better relationships, start a business, run a business, etc. Because ultimately, by healing the food and the body, I healed my low self-worth. So then I stopped doing things that weren't serving me, that were keeping me stuck in my, my old habits and behaviors and thought processes. So yeah, that's what I just try and tell people so much. Like you'll be amazed how like your people pleasing reduces. Like you'll just be amazed how much of the rest of your life changes when you just focus on
yeah.
like the food piece and the body image piece.
Yeah, and I think the reason why it has such a big impact is because when you try and fix binge eating with dieting, that's like the surface level kind of fix. But when you work, for example, on the root of the cause, it's like you're healing everything else with it, right? And I'm sure you probably get the same, Elle, but I have clients message me after work with them and they're like, oh my God, I just went for this new job that I never had the confidence to go for.
Yeah.
And it's all because of the work that you do with like on your self-esteem, on your confidence, on the way that you perceive, you know, who you are. And I think that's why I'm really proud of the work that we do because we're actually
Oh,
changing people's lives.
it is. I get really emotional about it a lot. I get really emotional when a client finishes their period with me, but also when you do just get those updates. Like one of mine was she always wanted to move to Australia. She was in the UK and she just didn't have the confidence or the self-worth in herself. And then I remember just getting a text, her one-way ticket was there and she's been there for like a year
Oh,
now. And she's literally just loving it. I'm like, that is what I'm all about.
yeah,
Like that is awesome. And like you say, with the new jobs and the partners or the getting rid of partners that weren't right or
yeah.
whatever it is, like it's so emotional.
Yeah, it is. And it's so true because, like, if you have low self-worth and it's affecting food, it's also affecting who you're choosing to spend your time around, right? And who you feel you're like worth, or how should I phrase this? Like, what kind of, for example, we're talking about women, you like the partner that you choose who treats you in a certain way, like, that's all based on self-worth as well. So it is crazy. Like, I always say this isn't just nutrition and it's not just food freedom. It's like, it's actually your whole life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If anyone's listening, I'm like, do something about it. Like these changes are real. Like they've
Yes.
changed our lives, it's changed our clients' lives. Like it is a journey to definitely go on. Like
Yeah.
I just, and there's that saying, isn't there? Like well, people will say to me, like, oh, I just don't know if it's going to work for me. And I'm like, well, whatever you're doing at the moment or have been doing, has that been working for you? So why don't you just try this kind of like alternative, it's not even an alternative, it's just the way it should be, but it's seen as alternative from dieting. Why don't you try this way? And if you don't like it, you can go back again. But like the likelihood of someone not liking that feeling of freedom
Yeah.
is not going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. And I think obviously as coaches we see the benefit of like working like one-to-one or like on a course, but it doesn't have to be that way. Like if you can't invest money in it, or you're just a bit like, I guess, apprehensive at first, just follow people like us on Instagram and like just get some tips, get some advice, try things out for yourself. If it feels overwhelming, then you might need some like more kind of tailored guidance. But
Mm.
I know people who have done it without like investing a lot of money into it. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, you can read books, you can listen to podcasts like this. So I know we're kind of like, we're going in on how great it is to work with someone, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be that way. Although it can really fast track the process if you do.
Yeah, it's that podcast, like
Yeah.
books. That was where I started. I was like, okay, let's just try and listen to some books on audio book. I remember driving up and down the country, listening to loads of different podcasts and being like, okay, I'm starting to gain some new knowledge on this. Like,
Yeah.
and then you'll feel ready for it.
Yeah. And I think because it's such a 180 on like what we've learnt in our lives. Like, it's like the opposite of what we've been taught about, like weight and health, that it does feel a bit like, oh, should I believe it? Should I not? But that's why you've got to do all the research and, like, as you said, books, podcasts, listen to people who are credible, like people who have an authority in this space. And yeah, it can make such a difference. It's about reframing those beliefs that are keeping you stuck, isn't it?
Yeah, and beliefs that aren't even your fault that you've got. Like,
Yeah.
if you were born into a dieting family, it's not your fault that you really do believe that you have to like burn off everything you eat, or you mustn't get over a certain size or weight because then you're unlovable.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like everything in life, isn't it? Like, just because the rest of the world screams out about it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good. And I think um it's about just having that empowered state of just questioning, like, okay, that might be working for someone else, but is there a reason why I'm unhappy? Is it linked to that? You know, is my are these pressures to lose weight, are they helping me be healthy and happy, or are they actually taking me away from that goal? And for a lot of people, that's the truth. It's not fun being on a diet. It's not fun trash talking yourself every day. It's just not like a sustainable way to be happy and healthy. And it's just about being able to be aware of that and see that and make that decision for yourself.
Yeah, like I choose to be happy. I choose to now live a life of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So important. Oh, thank you so much. It's been so good talking to you. I could talk about, well, we could both talk about this forever and ever, for hours, putting the world to rights in the diet industry.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, thank you so much. So if you could just leave us with what would be, from your personal experience, from your sort of moving through the binge eating, the low body image, what would be if you could give one tip, I know you give loads, but if you just give one key tip, what would it be?
Oh, I've got a few to choose from.
Yeah, I know, it's harder, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, so I want to say awareness, but I feel like I've kind of touched upon that already. I think if we're talking about a binge eating point of view, it would be to really reconnect with your body and what it wants from you. And that just means taking like 5 minutes every couple of hours to check in with what your body's asking for. Is it asking for food? Or is it asking for water? Is it asking for rest? I think that's one of the key things that being an intuitive eater is, that, like, we call it introspective awareness. So having that connection to understand what your body wants in a specific time. And I think a lot of binge eaters, they kind of suppress that connection with their bodies, and then it means that their bodies just lash out and binge eat eventually. So yeah, that's my one tip.
Yeah, I like that a lot. It is that connection piece. And that is definitely the top tip. Even now, like when you're the other side of this, I know for me, I still have to connect to my body on a regular basis. Like, I'm not saying my things will never come up again, but like if I say over Christmas, for example, when it would have brought back old memories of feeling triggered, I just had to make sure I'm checking in. Am I okay? Have I got energy today? Do I need to rest? Like, where am I at with my food? Like, it is just reconnecting to yourself. It's so important.
Yeah, and I think it's that energy thing is so important, right? So if you know that your body is low on energy, or if you feel that, then you can learn to feel your body depending on what it's asking for. And I think again, like you, that is something I still have to remind myself to do, because I don't have food anxiety, or I don't beat myself up about food ever, but I get busy and I forget to feed myself sometimes, and that can make me kind of over hungry, and in that kind of, like rebound eating, where you're like so hungry that you eat really fast.
Yeah.
So I still get that sometimes, and that's because I'm not checking in with what my body needs, because I'm just too focused on, I don't know, work or whatever it is. So I think we can all definitely take something from that. Just check in with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. How am I today? Like you do with a friend. When you meet up with a friend in the morning, you say, "How are you?" Same with
Yeah.
yourself, like, "How am I today?"
Yeah. Oh, I love
Um,
that.
Thank you so much. So where can people find you on social media?
So on social media, I'm at nunas.nutrition. So yeah, just like you, we give tips and just I talk about my experience a lot on there as well. And yeah, I've got a website as well, www.nunasnutrition.com, and that's me.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks for
All
having that.
right.
Being here.
Bye.
Bye. Hello and welcome to the More to Life podcast. I am your host, Elle Mace, and today we have a mini episode all about my top tips for gaining confidence. So, as you're listening, just check in with yourself. How confident are you? How confident are you from the outside, and how confident are you from within? And how do you become more confident? Now, we kind of are quick to assume that actually confidence is found from the outside, and if you carry yourself in a certain way and if you change your body language, then you'll appear more confident. And that is true to a certain extent. Yes, you may be perceived as more confident if you are, giving eye contact and your body language, but actually, like, true confidence comes from within. And those people that you see and they just sort of light up a room when they come in, and they just like ooze a vibe. And it's usually because they're just so secure in themselves. They're not pretending to be anyone else. They just seem really authentic and true to themselves, and they literally shine. And you may be thinking, oh, if I was my sort of like true, most authentic self, then maybe I wouldn't shine like that. But you really would. That's just the story you've been telling yourself for so long. So how can you increase your confidence? Here are some of my top tips. Firstly, increase your self-worth. Increase how worthy you feel about yourself. And how do you do that? One thing you can do is to look at your strengths. So what are you good at? And then work on those even more. Now, I actually cannot remember the stat, but I do remember back in my corporate days, I was in a talk with somebody, and he said to me, if you increase if you work on your strengths, something like you'll be able to increase your performance by like 80%. If you work on your weaknesses, you'll increase it by like 10%. And so if you actually focus on what you're good at, you'll find that you'll grow a lot quicker, and you'll start to excel in whatever it is, rather than focusing on what we can't do so well or what other people are doing so well. So think about your strengths, identify them, and then think, where can I implement these in my week to help me raise my self-esteem? And if you are struggling to identify what your strengths might be, then reach out to loved ones, people you care about, your friends and family, and ask them, what are my strengths? And sometimes it's quite nice to get them to text this to you, because then if you're ever having a moment where you feel a little bit low, a little bit down, you can save these text messages and you can go back over and read them. And I know that has previously really helped me. So find out what your strengths are. Think of them yourself is amazing. If not, ask somebody else, and then think, okay, how could I put this into my life daily and weekly? So for example, if someone says to you, you're an amazing listener, well then how can you help others by sitting there and listening? And that will help you raise your self-esteem and your self-worth.
Next is actually spending time with yourself, A, alone, and B, if you want to sort of really push yourself, then also like naked, or not necessarily naked, but maybe with like less clothes on, and actually spending time with your physical body. We spend so much time hiding ourselves, feeling embarrassed, and getting changed under towels and turn the lights off, and we're just not used. Some of us are just not used to spending time with ourselves, either in the mirror or in person, and actually kind of touching ourselves, giving yourself a physical stroke if you've got a tummy ache, or just holding on to yourself, giving yourself a bit of a cuddle. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, it sounds so icky, I can't do this. I remember feeling like that. I remember feeling like, oh, this is not the answers I wanted. I just wanted to click my fingers and feel better about myself. I didn't want to have to go through all this uncomfortable feelings of doing this. But it does get easier, and it can get easier a lot quicker. So spend time looking at yourself every single day, and it will feel difficult to start with, but then very quickly you'll actually realise it feels really normal to look at yourself in the mirror, and you're not so quick to look at the negatives. And those times when you're walking down the street and you catch yourself in the shop window, that just, at the moment, if you're not used to spending time with yourself and looking at yourself, and, you might find that quite difficult. But those will be the moments when you'll look back and think, I actually didn't have a go at myself then. I actually didn't find something negative to say about myself, because you've got used to spending this time with yourself and spending time alone. If you're somebody that doesn't like to do that, some people do like to do that, so that's not something they need to do anymore. But if you are finding it hard to spend time on your own, then you need to do it so you can show yourself that you are safe on your own. You're safe thinking about your internal thoughts and feelings. And when you're spending this time on your own, try not to be on social media, try not to be, getting double busy with yourself. Just try and allow yourself to sort of sit, see what comes up. Just rest, go for walks, and just listen to your internal body messages. And what else have we got for top tips? So we've got some quirky top tips for you. So you can start to push yourself outside your comfort zone here. Now these are fun, and it's good to challenge yourself to do these, because it also, once you've completed it, you start to build that trust with yourself again. A lot of us just don't trust ourselves because we've asked ourselves to do something and we've not been able to do it. We've set ourselves far too challenging tasks, and therefore we've, failed, although we know actually we haven't failed. Or in terms of dieting, we try and do what has been sold to us as a simple, easy diet, but yet we can't quite do it, and we blame it on ourselves. And therefore we don't have trust with ourselves that we are able to do what we say we're going to do and do what we want to do. So by setting yourselves small but challenging and fun tasks, you will start to build up that trust muscle with yourself, which is so important. So here are some for you. Dress like the person you want to be, or maybe the person you used to be. So decide, how do I want to dress? If you're dressing right now exactly how you want to, or how you truly want to, then great. But if you're not, think, okay, let's pull out that piece of clothing from the wardrobe that I just don't feel comfortable enough wearing it, and wear it. And think, who do I want to be, and how do I want to dress? Okay, and it's going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I'm asking you to be brave. But actually, the only person that will be feeling those feelings is you. So try that one for a task. The second one, go out for a drink or some food to a cafe and restaurant on your own, especially in a busy place where this sometimes might feel really difficult for you. And enjoy being on your own, and cheer yourself on, and remind yourself when you're there, you are safe. You don't need to be with other people. You can do these things on your own, or you don't need to sort of stay inside if you're on your own. And just enjoy being in the moment, people watching, but showing yourself that you are worthy enough of experiencing life on your own. Another one is make eye contact with strangers. Practice with those awkward moments. Look at someone in the eye and smile at them, or say hi. We quite often sort of walk around with our heads down, avoiding eye contact, just staying on our own little head. But actually, if you look up and really start to look at people, it can just raise your internal vibe. But also, it's so nice when you catch someone's eye and you both smile. You may not get the same response, but that's okay. And do something that scares you. Try and do something that scares you. Think of something that you've told yourself, I cannot do. I would never be able to do that. And push yourself to do it. So that might be an activity. It might be a physical activity. It might be a mental activity. It might be having a conversation with someone. I could never say that to them. But actually, if saying that to them is going to increase your self-worth, then do it. Absolutely do it. And then the motto I want you to try and just start practicing with is be, do, have. So be the person that does the things so that you can have it. So be that person that has confidence. Do the things of someone that is confident so you can have confidence. And a question that I often ask myself is, what would my future self do in this moment? What action would my future self take today? When I'm doubting myself in work, I'll think, well, my future confident self would just send that email and action it. Or my future confident self would wear those clothes and own it. So I want you to challenge yourself and question yourself with that. And then some more is you can set your boundaries. That's going to increase your self-worth, which is going to increase your confidence. You can stop people pleasing as well, because the more you people please, usually the more your confidence will come down with your self-worth. There's so many little things you can do. And as you'll see from what I've just said there, not really any of them are to do with the outside physical body. They're all to do with the inside, and that's where it comes from. I hope you've enjoyed this mini podcast. Send it on to anyone you think it might help. And next up, we have 2 more mini podcasts and a guest speaker, Rachel Evans. Thank you. Bye.